What's up guys, Houndish here, and today we're going to jump in and talk about Warmind Cells in Season of the Worthy. These are actually a pretty fun new part of the sandbox this season, and when you kind of scratch the surface of what Warmind Cells can do, they're cool, but not entirely the most exciting thing ever. That is unless, of course, you pay a bit more attention to them. Because they might be just a little bit better than you initially think, so if you haven't explored them too much, we are going to take a look at them. Of course, they are an intrinsic part of the Seraph weapons for the season, and also one of the main things that really increase the appeal of those weapons. But also, with bunkers unlocking over time, we are starting to get access to some pretty nasty new builds in the game, and we totally shouldn't ignore these, at least if we're into sandbox stuff, because honestly, these are some of the best things in PvE so far this season. So we'll talk about some of the insane new mods this week, but also give a bit of an overview for any folks who haven't looked into this yet, because we've got some really cool capabilities. Things like being able to get an Overshield when collecting Warmind orbs, chaining lightning to enemies for a few seconds at a time, weakening enemies, or just straight blowing them up. So we're going to touch on all that, but you first need to equip a Warmind mod. You can pick these up from Seraph Bunkers, but also the Seraph Tower's public event, and when they're equipped, defeating an enemy with a 7th Seraph weapon has a chance to drop a Warmind Cell. And so at base, it's kind of random as to when you actually get one dropped, although we can improve that by combining a bunch of different mods together. It is worth pointing out though that this works only with bunker weapons and the 2 Season Pass weapons, so essentially any weapon with 7th Seraph in the name. There are also additional mods, like Tyrant's Surge in the Artifact, and this allows arc melees, grenades, and supers, so all of your abilities, to also produce Warmind Cells. And using this in combination with the Seraph weapons is definitely the most reliable way to have Warmind Cells constantly available. And when you produce a Warmind Cell, of course you can blow stuff up by shooting them, and there are mods that make that more effective, but there's a lot more to it than that as we start to unlock additional bunker mods. So, for example, from the moon, we do have brand new mods available this week, and these have some of the more impressive effects. So one of the random drops for mods now that we have the moon bunker available is Modular Lightning, and collecting a Warmind Cell creates a burst of chaining arc energy around you, and you get a pulsing wave of lightning that destroys enemies in the area for a few seconds. In fact, Walden on Reddit did share that this can actually go on for quite some time, as you can see. But the perk on its own is cool. However, these mods really are designed for entire builds, so if you pick up the Sheltering Energy mod from the Moon Bunker upgrade page, when you collect a Warmind Cell, you're granted an Overshield, and the Overshield in itself is pretty strong, but it actually lasts for 20 seconds, which is pretty beneficial, especially since we're looking to collect those cells to proc Modular Lightning as well. Of course, as we mentioned, you can use Seraph weapons to produce cells, but with the previous combo, and in general, Tyrant's Surge from the Artifact is absolutely awesome, because right here we're using that mod to drop Warmind Cells from arc abilities. Melee grenades and supers will work, and when they drop a Warmind Cell, you can pick that up, which triggers Modular Lightning, and this clears everything else out as enemies group up or spawn. And specifically in the build you're looking at right here, we do have the mod Global Reach as well, which is a random EDZ drop. This one increases the range at which Warmind Cells affect and damage targets, and as far as we know, that's also increasing the range on Modular Lightning. And then in addition, why not rock Fellwinter's Helm on Warlocks, which allows melees to weaken targets? And then of course we can focus on melees to proc all of the other mods that we're using, so there is a lot of potential. But now, if we take a mod that we had last week, Burning Cells, this creates a burst of solar energy that causes enemies to burn for several seconds, so you do get an additional layer of damage over time, which is pretty neat, on top of a basic Warmind Cell explosion. But there are even more brand new mods that work with this, so we also have Wrath of Rasputin, which drops from Seraph chests, and this allows solar splash damage to produce Warmind Cells. This is immensely fun with solar weapons like Sunshot, Oxygen, or things like Xenophage, which can destroy the cells really quickly. That's really fun in itself, but with Burning Cells also there, the burn tick damage actually counts as solar splash damage. So in addition, if you're rocking Sunbreaker Titan or something, especially with say Phoenix Cradle, these mods and Sun Warrior are really strong. But remember once again that Global Reach increases the range of damage and effects from Warmind Cells, so all of our splash damage and its effectiveness in producing extra cells can actually be improved with this. So by getting creative with this stuff, you can have a lot of very potent PvE builds. Hunters can also play around with Blade Barrage, Throwing Knives, Burning Edge, and Knife Trick. Or, going the arc route, you could use things like Raid and Flux, and Arc Staff, to get an incredibly long Arc Staff super, with free Overshields, and a free kind of mini Stormcaller following in your wake via Modular Lightning. But say in addition to this, you use something like Cellular Suppression. With this mod, when you damage a Warmind Cell, it actually suppresses nearby enemies. And the useful thing is that it only requires damage to proc, and so you basically can proc it by just firing one round at the Warmind Cell, and then proc it again 5 seconds later if the cell is still there. Once again, there is a hidden timer, but it's pretty neat, because you can kind of use it to blockade and control where enemies go. Even in a super, of course if you're rocking an arc super, you'll actually be able to produce these orbs, and so with Stormcaller here, it's dropping Warmind Cells, and when you damage the cell with Stormcaller it does say immune. However, whenever it says immune, it still procs the Void Suppress, so you can kind of see it continuously suppressing enemies right there. And in Seraph Towers, interestingly enough, I think this has the potential to be very, very powerful. They require a little bit of work in getting used to, but imagine if you had 3 players taking advantage of these builds. You could potentially have a fire team go in and also have a group of randoms with you, but have your fire team cover all of the enemy spawns on each plate, and do that relatively easily to keep enemies away. Other really neat mods available at the moment include Warmind Protection, and this allows reduced damage from enemies that are near Warmind Cells, also something that could be generally pretty useful. And you can see the enemies that are glowing red right here. This is demonstrating that their damage is indeed reduced. But there's an artifact perk this season as well, called Passive Guard, where you receive less damage from nearby enemies when holding a sword. And that is a generally very strong mod, and if you like to get up close and personal with swords in general in Destiny, I'd say that's going to be a mod to look out for. And so to break down the rest of the mods and where you can actually pick them up, the European Dead Zone and all of the other bunkers do have mods that you'll get by upgrading the bunker. And so EDZ has Incinerating Light, where you become charged with light by rapidly defeating multiple enemies with an explosion of a Warmind Cell. But there's also Rage of the Warmind, and this adds additional solar damage to the explosions of Warmind Cells that you destroy. And so if you had some solar burn Nightfalls or something like that, you could spec that into an existing build. However, from the moon, we're going to pick up Warmind's Light, and you can become charged with light by collecting a Warmind Cell, or Sheltering Energy, where collecting a Warmind Cell grants you an Overshield. However, finally on Io, you can get Grasp of the Warmind, where you can pick up, carry, and throw Warmind Cells, but once thrown, a Warmind Cell cannot be picked up again. That's pretty interesting. There could be certain endgame PvE situations where you could potentially pool up orbs, do it as a fire team, and then place them into a specific location, maybe near to enemy spawns or even a boss or something. It could potentially be quite a lot of fun, that. And then there is a light from the darkness as well, and you become charged with light by rapidly defeating multiple enemies near a Warmind Cell using weapons or abilities. There are other random drops for mods though as well, and I think these are really worth paying attention to, especially since they'll start dropping when we get some of the upcoming bunkers. But there is the Strength of Rasputin, where collecting a Warmind Cell grants you melee energy, so you can actually directly transfer that Warmind Cell into a different ability. The Power of Rasputin, where you gain a bonus to weapon damage against enemies that are near Warmind Cells. That could be very curious for DPS, especially bear in mind, we just spoke about the perk that allows you to move Warmind Cells around. What if you could position them essentially as a damage buff? That could be pretty insane. And then Warmind's Longevity, where Warmind Cells you create will last for longer. And finally, Light of the Fire, where rapidly defeating targets with the detonation of Warmind Cells generates an orb of light. And so looking at all that stuff, and bear in mind quite a lot of this has yet to unlock via upcoming bunkers, it definitely gives us some stuff to play around with in the sandbox, some new builds for this season, and quite a lot of potential there in the near future when we do get those new bunkers. So totally worth thinking about and playing around with the ones we can get for the moment, guys. And that's the main reason I wanted to make this video. So I hope you have enjoyed it. Let us know your thoughts on these new cells, or any of the sandbox stuff this season in general. It absolutely increases the appeal of the Seraph weapons in my opinion. So that is a positive. I've also got to say a massive thanks to my pal Easy. Been working really hard to unlock a bunch of these mods. I've got an immensely busy weekend, guys, and so Easy has been helping me to kind of put this stuff together. So as always, I super appreciate the help from my clanmates. And once again, from you guys as well. We've been celebrating that 500k for the past couple of days, and it's actually been pretty surprising how many new subscribers we've had in that time as well. So once again, thank you guys so much for the support. And in case you missed it yesterday, we do have the new shirt to celebrate 500k as well. And if you want to check that out, the link will be in the description box below. But if you've enjoyed the video and you do want to stick around for more content, then be sure to hit that subscribe button down below. And otherwise, thank you as always for tuning in, guys. And whatever you get up to, I hope you have an awesome day.